"All right, lads," barked the sergeant, his voice cutting through the pre-dawn stillness. "We're moving out. Remember the intel. We've got a job to do and not a lot of time to do it." The Royal Marine Unit, known as the Silent Shadows, had been airlifted into the unforgiving terrain of the Afghan Badlands under the cloak of darkness. They were a seasoned group of soldiers, each one a master of their craft, and the gravity of their mission was etched into the furrowed lines of their faces. The man at the center of their tight circle was Corporal Jameson, a grizzled veteran with a stoic gaze that could bore through the thickest of walls. His hand gripped the GPS device tightly, his thumb hovering over the button that would bring their location to life on the tiny screen. Their target was the remote village of Copmond, a dusty speck on the map that had been transformed into a nightmare by a particularly nasty group of terrorists. The Americans had stumbled into an ambush there, and now it was the Shadows' turn to step into the fray. The intel reports were grim, a full Marine Corps unit pinned down and taking heavy fire, with no sign of relief in sight. The only way to survive was to fight, and fight hard. With a firm nod, Jameson led the way, his boots crunching against the stony earth. The men fell into a single file behind him, their weapons at the ready. They moved swiftly and silently, their shadows stretching and contorting with the first hints of the sun peeking over the horizon. The air was cold and thin, carrying the faint scent of diesel and the promise of a brutal day ahead. The landscape around them was a jigsaw of rocks and sand, a place where every crevice could hide an enemy or an escape route. They knew the layout of Copman by heart, having studied it for weeks before this moment, but the reality was always different. The village was a labyrinth, a place where the line between life and death was drawn in invisible ink. As they approached the outskirts of the village, the distant rumble of gunfire grew louder, punctuating the silence like a drumbeat from hell. It was a symphony of chaos, a grim reminder of the battle that raged just beyond their sight. The tension grew taut as a bowstring, each man's breath shallow and measured. They had to be swift, precise, and merciless. Failure wasn't just an option, it was a nightmare they couldn't let themselves consider. They were the rescue party, the cavalry coming in to save the day, and they were all that stood between their American allies and a grisly fate. The first rays of sunlight kissed the barren hills, casting a stark, almost surreal light over the scene. It was as if the world had been painted in shades of sepia, and the only color was the crimson of their determination. They were the Silent Shadows, and this was their dance with destiny. The sergeant raised his hand, signaling the unit to halt. He tapped his earpiece, listening intently to the frantic chatter from the AM.